It doesn't matter whether you like Maduro or whether you hate the Chavistas or whatever okay? He will use you like a pawn. Okay, you're like a cum rag.
That is so disgusting and unprofessional. Thank you for tuning in. There is so much to discuss. And of course, obviously, we're going to touch on the situation in Venezuela. And just to kind of level set where I'm coming from, I have been friends with and admired Venezuelan dissidents for years who were forced to flee the country because of the destructive socialism and authoritarian policies that took the prosperous, thriving, middle-class country of Venezuela and destroyed it and made it into a dystopian hellscape. However, of course, I'm also somebody who cares about the Constitution and about doing things the right way, and I have serious questions and concerns about what comes next in Venezuela and whether Trump was really legally or constitutionally authorized to do all of this. But one thing you're never going to catch me doing is rooting for dictators or spreading fake news or conspiracy theories. Yeah, that is how many in the influencer class have decided to respond to what's happening in Venezuela. Up first, we've got to check in with left-wing streaming star and YouTube sensation, also beloved by every magazine that wants to give him a glossy cover shoot because all these liberal women journalists thirst after him. Hasan Piker, of course, or Hasanabi, as he is known online. He's not doing great at the moment because, of course, he low-key, I don't know if he would admit this, but he probably admired Chavez and Maduro, the socialist dictators of Venezuela, because they stood for and implemented a lot of the policies that the Democratic Socialists of America types like Hasan actually want to implement here in the U.S. So he is not thrilled, to say the least, to see Trump go in and take down the dictator. And rather than raise serious procedural questions about the legality and constitutionality of Trump's move or question what comes next, Hasan is instead attacking America and lashing out at Venezuelans who are happy that this their long nightmare may soon come to an end. So there's a lot to unpack here from Hasan. First, though, I just want to check in on something kind of hilarious, which is that just days ago, with 2026 being rung in, Happy New Year, by the way, Hasan made some predictions for 2026, and one of them was that Trump would not invade Venezuela. And just days later, obviously, that has aged like milk. Let's watch this clip.
Trump expands Latin American posturing. I don't think Trump is going to... Dude, this is going to be a Russia-Ukraine situation possibly, but Trump doesn't invade Venezuela.
So the funny part here is that Hasan also famously predicted that Russia wouldn't invade Ukraine, which of course it did. And now here he is predicting just days ago that Trump will not invade Venezuela this year, and then Trump immediately invades Venezuela. So predictions when it comes to political pundits is a dangerous game, and there should be a lot more humility. So like, you're not going to catch me telling you I know what's going to happen and what's not going to happen categorically. I could give you some analysis, but I'm pretty hesitant to make a bold declarations because they can and do age terribly, as Hasan's did here and in the Ukraine war and others. And I do come back to this question of how many times can these massive pundits and personalities get things so totally wrong before people start like giving them a little bit of side eye and saying, hey, am I really going to continue to trust this person for news and analysis after so many predictions and claims they've made have turned out to be not true or false or instantly disproven or debunked like this one? And people should have asked themselves that question about Hasan a long time ago, if you ask me. But now we're going to get to the part where Hasan mocks Venezuelans for being happy that Maduro has been removed from power. And it's really remarkable stuff. First, though, guys, please do make sure subscribed if you aren't yet. Please hit the like button while you're at it. And please do consider becoming a channel member to support my content so I can call out the left and the right, and I don't have to pander to the YouTube algorithm on one side or the other. It's the #1 way to support me, and you will unlock early access to full-length ad-free episodes as well. So please become a channel member now. So anyway, guys, Hasan A nuanced critique of what Trump has done here could sound something like this. Of course, I'm happy for the Venezuelan people to be free of this nightmare. This dictator deserved his fate. However, what Trump did here is illegal and unconstitutional. It's an act of war, bombing military bases, invading a country, and you need congressional approval from that. And a history of regime change in this country, efforts abroad, hasn't gone well. So what comes next? Are we going to have to occupy, destabilize the country? Is it going to cause a refugee crisis? Are we just going to put an even worse regime in power? And there's so many legitimate discussions to be had here. But mocking and insulting Venezuelans who are happy that, of course, the dictator who destroyed their country has finally got hit with instant karma isn't one of them, but that's what Hasan decided to do. Listen to this clip. It's really quite something.
And a lot of those Venezuelans, some of them are going to be in the chat today, are going to talk like this is a fantastic moment and Trump is a great liberator. Bitch.
Well, Hasan, they might talk like that because their country has been destroyed by these monsters. Like, can't you comprehend that? Can't you acknowledge that? That regardless of whether you agree with what Trump did or not, and I can respect the debate across the spectrum on that front, of course Venezuelan expatriates. I mean, like 8 million people were forced to flee the country because of the political instability and economic destruction and censorious illiberalism of this regime. Yeah, of course they're going to be happy to see that guy taken down. What? It's not clocking to you? Like Justin Bieber meme? What's going on here? What part of that is worthy of derision? I genuinely don't get it. But here's the rest of this. And he had to make it vulgar, of course, because why not?
Bitch, he's saying you're a rapist, okay? I need you to understand this if you are a Venezuelan expat, if you are a Venezuelan refugee living in the United States of America, understand something. He is saying you're a rapist, drug dealer that will get sent to CCOT. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you like Maduro or whether you hate the Chavistas or whatever the okay. He will use you like a pawn. Okay, you're like a cum rag. That's it.
That is so disgusting and unprofessional. Like, how is this guy one of the biggest voices on the internet when it comes to political commentary and discourse, and he's talking like that about these issues? But one, I don't really think what he's saying here is true. I don't believe that President Trump, well, he certainly, ranted and raved about immigrants and illegal immigrants and this and that and said all sorts of things I don't necessarily agree with. The idea that he categorically views all Venezuelan immigrants as like criminals or rapists or scum or something, I don't think is true. I mean, he's met with many of them. There are many of them in his administration. Now, there's a couple different distinctions to be made here between illegal immigrants, which Trump does speak about in these very broad ways that I think paint with far too broad a brush. And he has revoked temporary protected status for one group of Venezuelan immigrants that was given it under Biden, but he actually authorized, Trump extended legal authorization in his first term to some Venezuelan migrants, and he has not revoked it. So certainly he doesn't think they're all just rapists and scum and criminals and drug dealers, and he's certainly not trying to send them to CCOT or CDOT, whatever the acronym is for the dystopian El Salvadorian prison that he was sending some immigrants to. Yeah, this just isn't really true. And the other point is, even if it was, so even if Trump was hateful categorically towards Venezuelan people, which his many faults aside, I don't really think is true. But regardless, let's say that's true. So therefore, you can't be happy if he takes down the dictator that ruined your country. That doesn't really equate. That just because this person is bad or hateful towards me in one way, if they take an action that I support, I must be not support that. That doesn't really make a lot of sense if you're coming at this from the lens of critical thinking rather than, I don't know, blind tribalism. Trump bad, socialism good. That's the problem that I keep coming back here to. Hasan is really, he's engaged in motivated reasoning here. He has to find a reason to kind of downplay the regime and make it seem like the U.S. is just categorically evil for wanting to do anything about it, because this regime is fundamentally like what Hasan Piker and his ilk want to do to our country. They talk, even Zoran Mamdani, they talk about democratic socialism as opposed to, the nasty authoritarian socialism that cost tens of millions of people their lives in the 20th century. No. We're democratic socialists, right? That's what they say. But here's the thing about that. In Venezuela, the socialism that destroyed their country, forced 8 million people to flee, was democratic socialism. They elected Hugo Chavez in 1998, I believe. Let me just check my notes. Yeah, 1998. And he went on and he nationalized industries. He seized private property. He massively expanded price controls and subsidies, exploded government spending on welfare, printed money to pay for it all. That's the same kind of thing that our left-wing democratic socialist friends push when it comes to modern monetary theory. And it was initially all done through legitimate democratic government. So they implemented a socialistic agenda, government control over the economy through democratic means, and then it destroyed the country, caused hyperinflation, an economic crisis. They were literally eating pets and eating rats. They were reduced to that, forced millions of people to flee, and then once they had concentrated control over the economy, and they had just so much power over people's livelihoods, well, they slowly whittled away at the whole democratic part. And they ended up, over the years, just becoming an authoritarian regime that held on to power illegitimately. So this is the problem with democratic socialism. It starts democratic, sure, but it doesn't stay democratic necessarily, and it still involves many of the same ruinous economic policies. So what we have here is Hasan being forced to kind of muddy the waters about the situation and not just be honest that Maduro was evil and deserved a downfall of some kind, whether you agree with what Trump did or not, because that's like his man. I mean, we literally had Bernie Sanders advisors years ago writing about Hugo Chavez, economic miracle for left-wing outlets positively. And then they stopped talking about it when it all went to shit. Funny how that works. And of course, with Hasan, just no matter what, America has to be evil, and the worst, most evil thing ever. Here's another clip from his stream discussing this issue. Let's watch.
The United States is the greatest terrorist of all time. It's the #1 terrorist on the planet. It's really funny that people try to act like that's not the case. It's really funny that they even try to make it seem as though there's any sort of legal justification for what we did last night.
So I am totally open to criticisms of the United States, of the U.S. government, of our foreign policy, our roles abroad. But you just lose me when you say this kind of insane hyperbolic shit. And I actually think I've been reading Ilya Somin over at the Volca Conspiracy, and other constitutional conservatives like Rand Paul have talked about how there's serious legal and constitutional objections to the actions that Trump has taken in Venezuela. But when you conflate that with America evil, America's the #1 terrorism sponsor or terroristic state in the world, just like obviously laughably absurd and untrue claims, yeah, people aren't going to take you seriously. They're going to write that off for the ridiculousness that it is. But somehow millions of people are still tuning in to Hasan Piker for his political wisdom and insight. But remember, guys, the reason there's so much cope about Venezuela and so much muddying of the waters and denial and gaslighting from far left types in America is because the vision for Venezuela is their vision for America. It is, if you were to look at the Democratic Socialists of America, the actual political party and their platform, which Hasan by and large supports pretty openly. If you were to look at the things Zoran Mamdani, the new mayor of New York City, has supported over the years, it is not 100% copy and paste what they did in Venezuela, but it's certainly, if you were to submit the two, you'd get flagged for mostly plagiarized. We'll put it that way. There's so much overlap there. And in fact, it is literally democratic socialism, which is still socialism and still fails and is still fundamentally evil. So that's why there is this muddying of the waters that I do consider to be really unfortunate and dishonest. But other than that, Hasan Piker is doing exactly what he always does. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, and please do consider becoming a channel member on YouTube to support my content if you can, and like, comment, yada yada, yeah.